This is a poem about what I'm holding in my hands. It's called A Chain of Happenings. Why am I here? It all started with a project, and other things happened I didn't expect. Even now, it isn't finished. It was begun for 3 reasons. One was that I loved but struggled to pray the rosary. I always had, at least since my becoming Catholic in college years. I have ADD, and in praying it individually, it is accompanied with some difficulty. I get off track. So I desired to make one drenched with so much meaning and striking multiple senses that it would help me to focus on the attempt to pray. My mother, upon entering the Catholic Church, had gotten one, made by hidden sisters from rose petals. They smelled sweetly of roses when held in the warmth of one's hands. I wanted to make one, but I lived in the city at the time, and roses were of short supply, for I did not have time and space for a garden to grow enough. I would gladly have crossed the walls and lived, prayed, and made them alongside those hidden sisters, but my health was too weak. The second reason was that something caught my attention. As I exited the Newman Center at Temple University onto the streets of North Philadelphia on a freezing rain-drenched February day, I saw something. It was lying there on the street, an abandoned, perhaps rejected Valentine's Day bouquet of roses, trampled, drenched, mostly browned, and molding in parts. It was as if the whole noisy world stopped for a moment, and I sensed an urgency, a weight upon them, a sadness laced with the city's suffering, almost as if there was a desire for them to be simply held. And the third reason is that it seemed that God asked that they be made into something beautiful, something so beautiful one would never imagine the origin of the attempt, a beauty more beautiful than if it had always been beautiful. And I thought, why not? I was trying to design the cross on a budget, but the attempt failed, was too weak a material, so I mounted it on a frame and placed a copy of a prayer alongside. My sense of symmetry could not stand it, so I wrote a poem to go on the other side that would evolve into a book inspired by my time in Philadelphia and the students I was blessed to learn from. I made an attempt at the center. That failed for the same reason, too weak. So I made it into a votive candle, which would later burn by mistake and be placed by the feet of another mosaic of Guadalupe. As soon as I made the center, in part from car window fragments, a material that fascinated me, as it was visibly quite more beautiful after it had been broken than before. I had seen it often on cleanup days during city year in Philadelphia under the L, and thought how dazzlingly beautiful a thing they were, how wonderful it would be to make something out of them. It inspired me, along with the little votive candle, to make a window of the same material. So I went on the hunt for some fragments around Philadelphia streets. It was hard to find big pieces. As I came upon my friend Andy taping up his broken car window with a trash bag and duct tape, I tried to hide my excitement. This was no doubt a difficult moment for him. I said, "I am so sorry, Andy. Can I have that?" He gave me a funny look, but agreed. It would become the very first mosaic made of glass and car window fragments, but I knew once made it would not be the last. I was in love with the medium. I saved Andy's window and incorporated it into every piece I made after, or continued after, in one way or another. Even my engagement ring and wedding dress and rosary were adorned by it. I had no idea where it would all lead. I just kept working on my project and whatever seemed to happen along the way. I lost my job, my sanity. I was too weak to be a teacher in the city. I turned to making stained glass mosaic windows as the only thing I could do in the state I was in, an attempt both at self-help therapy and a desperate attempt at income, which didn't work. It did, with God's grace, help piece me back together and process my difficulties both in art and poems inspired by them. And at a certain point, I felt a call to share what I had made in hope that its fragments would minister to fragments, as they had to me. And even more precisely and simply, because it seemed that God asked. And though petrified, I said, "Why not?"